talk more about Jalen Brunson and just the impact that he's had on this team, the way the offense runs, and especially, I mean, the last month, he's been incredible. Can you just tell the difference in the team since he arrived this year?
Yeah, speaking of a guy that should have been in Utah, and had he gotten in that game, wouldn't have been wasting time like Giannis and all these other guys. Giannis goes in and dunks the ball, then sits out for the rest of the night. I mean, just ridiculous stuff. But anyway, the last 20 games, Jalen Brunson averaging 30 points per game on 46% shooting from downtown. He's been absolutely electric. It just seems like when he got the All-Star snub, he played even better. And as I said, he's transformed this team. This team hasn't had a point guard in over 10 years. And since Julius Randle has been here over the last 4 years, the Knicks have really needed another guy that could take a lot of pressure off of him, a guy that can close in pressure moments and clutch situations. And that's who Jalen Brunson has been. And he's been hot. His momentum has been riding high since that playoffs last year with Dallas, when they upset the Phoenix Suns, they upset the Utah Jazz, and he did a lot of that without Luka Doncic. And that's when you started to see, okay, Jalen Brunson as the guy is a serious problem for the league. I mean, he's a threat at all three levels. He's leading the league in catch and shoot three-point percentage as well. So he can play off ball, but on ball, he's even better, because the way that he can attack the basket, the way that he can get into the paint, and from there, use his footwork, use his size, his physicality. He's not big, but he's strong. So the way that he can get into the lane and move guys off of their spots to get to his spots. And hey, if you got a guy coming on him, he's got counters for you. You know, he's got a counter on a counter on a counter. So it's just incredible watching him work. And he's a guy that Julius Randle has been able to play off of, but also the team can rely on him in crunch time. He's in the top 5 in the league in clutch points. And it just seems like when the game gets tighter is when he plays better. So he's given this team a tremendous lift.
Go ahead, Justin.
You can take it, Matt. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Julius Randle, a player who, of course, don't need to tell you, has been polarizing for the Knicks. Do you think one of the, other than, of course, competitive success, as much as you can get it in the playoffs and beyond, do you think one of the goals of this season moving into the offseason is to kind of build Julius Randle up, look for potential moves in the offseason, or is the fit with Jalen Brunson working out well enough that you see him in the long-term future? Where does his status kind of stand right now?
Well, it seems like they have a little dynamic duo forming right now. And so I think for this regime under Leon Rose, they want to continue to win. James Dolan has gone out and interviewed with the media lately, and he says, look, he wants to make the playoffs. They believe they can make the playoffs. And so because I believe they're on an upward track, they're going to keep this team intact as much as they can and add to it rather than peeling it back. Now, how far will they go? I think that'll be determined when they can ultimately land the superstar of this team. Now, Jalen Brunson's a star and Julius is a star, but I still feel like they need one more piece to crack that top 3 in the East. But right now, look, they're playing well, man. 6 games over 500. They won 37 games last year. They're almost there right now at the, technically the halfway mark, but not really. They have 20 games left, so they should be able to surpass that number. And Julius Randle is a big reason for it, man. He's leading the league in first quarter points, always jumps out the gates hot. And as I said, Jalen Brunson is really taking a lot of pressure off of Julius Randle. Last year was hard on Julius because I believe there was a lot of pressure on him to repeat the success that they had in the season where they had the 4th seed in the East. They made it to the playoffs first time in 8 years. He was an integral part of that. He was an all-star, most improved player, got a contract extension. So there was a lot of pressure on him specifically last year to repeat that. And in the Knicks' attempt to get him some help, they went out and got Kemba Walker. They went out and got Evan Fournier, but those guys just didn't provide enough from a shot creation standpoint, from a playmaking standpoint, to overall lift up the team. But that's why Jalen Brunson is the biggest X factor this year, and it's helped Julius Randle tremendously.
How is Jalen dealing with just the New York media in general? We always see, just from a fan's perspective, of when a player goes to New York is different compared to other media markets. So how is he just coping just with that constant pressure of just the New York scene overall, you think?
I think he's handled it great. you know, especially earlier in the season when the team was trying to find its way. They were losing a couple games. They were getting embarrassed in certain games. And he was one of the few guys that would hold himself accountable, even in wins. And the media would go to him. He would say, yeah, this play was great, but I got to do better here. Or, yeah, you know, we did okay here, but I've got to do a better job of, you know, get my guys in spots. I got to do a better job of playing defense. We got to do a better job of closing out games. And so he's handled it very well. His father was here for a number of years with the late 90s Knicks. And so Jalen has grown up watching his father along his father's NBA journey as well. He, you know, coming from Villanova, a pro-ready school with a great head coach in Jay Wright, he's been ready for this moment. And so it's not a surprise in the way that he's handled the media. And it's necessary because a lot of guys can't. And as I just said, with Julius Randle's meltdown last year, you know, everybody can't handle it. Now, luckily, Julius is coming back around, but he's been great.
When you look at the success of this Knicks team as currently constructed, you know, they have their first run that you alluded to earlier when they were the 4 seed. Felt like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, felt like, you know, a very, very like try hard team, got a lot of extra wins in the regular season from that extra level of effort. Felt like that postseason, there are a lot of matchup problems that teams could plan for in the playoffs. Of course, with Jalen Brunson on the team, this is a very different team. Do you see them having a lot more advantages or a lot more tools in the toolkit this time around with him and any other factors that you're seeing? Do they look a lot different, you know, heading into the postseason?
Yeah, because on top of Julius Randle, who is a solid, you know, shot creator in isolation, now you have Jalen Brunson, who's an elite shot creator in his own right. And so you have that dual threat, and that's going to cause teams problems. You're going to have to pick your poison. You're not just going to be able to key in on Julius Randle and force the rest of the supporting cast to beat you. That's what the Hawks did in their playoff matchup. And the Knicks their supporting cast just couldn't deliver. RJ Barrett didn't shoot the ball well in that series. Reggie Bullock, he was a 40% three-point shooter in the regular season. He didn't shoot well in that series. They didn't have much help off of the bench. Emmanuel Quickley and Obi Toppin were rookies, and so they were a little bit wet behind the ears. But now, as I said, you have 2 all-stars, or I call Brunson an all-star, but you have 2 all-star caliber players in your starting lineup. And then with the bench, you have Emmanuel Quickley, who's playing like a 6-man of the year candidate. You know, his 3rd year in the league, he is the quarterback of this defense, and he's been shooting the ball a lot better as of late. His floater's back. His floater's kind of been his claim to fame. I believe he's shooting about 53% off of his floater. Defensively, he's getting the guys organized. He's really like the quarterback of that defense. And so the maturity of Emmanuel Quickley from his 2nd year to his 3rd year is really going to lift up that bench. And then Josh Hart, man. Josh Hart has been incredible for this team. And so I think defensively, they're going to give teams a lot of problems. We'll see about Obi Toppin, especially when it comes to playoff time. But I think this Knicks team is going to be vastly different than the team that you saw 2 years ago, because they're going to be well balanced in the starting lineup. And then defensively, they're going to be able to get after it a little bit better, especially off the bench.
I think that fans here would be really happy if they could get to the Western Conference Finals. If that happens, if that does indeed happen, then people will be very satisfied. And I think that would be a successful season. I don't think that we're in this window that they're in right now. I don't think we're looking at their best season. Their general manager, Zach Kleiman, has been pretty honest about being extremely aggressive and trying to add to this core of 3 players and trying to make it 4 with a wing player. Right now, you've got Ja, Jaren, and Desmond Bane, but outside of those 3, and those guys are all expected to be locked up for long term. You know, Jaren signed a 4-year deal. Ja's probably going to get a super max, and Desmond Bane will sign close to a max contract this summer. So you've got your core. You just need that 4th piece. And once that 4th piece gets there and you've gone all in, I think that's when you move to championship or bust. But right now it's like, okay, we've seen these guys play well. They've won a playoff series together. That series against Golden State really could have gone either way last year. I think if Ja stays healthy, or if Steven Adams doesn't miss the first 2 games, if Dylan Brooks doesn't get suspended, that there was just a lot in the air. And so many of those games were really close that if you're Memphis, you have to feel like you were really close to winning the West. I don't know if this is a championship team, though, given the uncertainty on the wing, but I think a Western Conference Finals appearance would be great.
what kind of it as we inch closer to the playoffs, you know, we've still got quite a few games between now and then. But, you know, if I were to tell you, Drew, the Grizzlies are going to beat the Warriors in the playoffs, they're going to match up, they're going to win. What would you say, would you predict are like the advantages or things that have changed between last playoff run and this one that kind of gets them over the hill with that?
I think Jaren will have played a lot better in that series. If you were to tell me that, you know, the guy that battled a lot of foul trouble in the playoffs, he still battles a lot of foul trouble in these national TV games. It's almost like either he gets overhyped or the game gets called a little bit tighter and things change a little bit. And so you hope that he can be a shot blocking force and not get a bunch of fouls in the playoffs. So you kind of have to start there. I think he's the most important player for the Grizzlies. And Ja will have to be amazing, of course, and Desmond Bane will have to make three-pointers because this is not a very good three-point shooting team. But I think where the Grizzlies have a distinct advantage, which they were able to use last year, is inside. I mean, their front court is pretty loaded. We talk about the lack of depth on the wing, but you've got Steven Adams, who's been terrific, maybe the second biggest impact defender as far as bigs go in the league behind Jaren Jackson Jr. It's why the Grizzlies have the number one defense. I guess it switches back and forth within that top three. They've been back and forth with Cleveland for the number one defense. But I think that they have a big advantage inside against the Warriors with Adams and with Jackson and with them both playing so well defensively. And then behind them, you bring in a guy like Santi Aldama, who hasn't played playoff minutes but has been great for them this season. Brandon Clark was great in the playoffs for the Grizzlies last year. And then even Xavier Tillman, we saw him hit a three-pointer in a game against the Warriors in the play-in that got the Grizzlies into the playoffs a few years ago. So they're loaded in the front court. They have to take advantage there. And they're going to have to play good three-point defense because the three-point discrepancy between those two teams is rather large. I think you have to worry about that if you're the Grizzlies. But if you can control tempo, if you can get in transition, if you can take advantage of your size inside and your talent level inside, I think that they would have a chance in that series for sure.
It's so interesting with the dynamic between those two teams. In some ways, I feel like it's been really good. You know, you talked about the hate that's there on social media in some cases. And, you know, I totally agree. I mean, social media is not real life. But in some ways, I do wonder, do you feel like the national profile of the Grizzlies has been risen thanks to those Ja Morant comments and sort of creating a rare rivalry in the NBA, in the modern day NBA, at least?
Yeah, I know. I 100% think that. Obviously, what Ja does on the court is one of one. He's the most electrifying guy out there every night. I feel so lucky to be sitting there close at these Grizzlies games and watch this guy dunk on people because it's unbelievable. Yeah. There's a reason why he's in the top 10 of jersey sales so quickly. But the comments that have gone back and forth with the Warriors, I think, have certainly raised the profile of the Grizzlies because now you have the most watched team in the NBA, the team with probably the biggest microscope on them, and they've developed a serious hatred for the Grizzlies that they put out there and seems to be pretty obvious. You know, I wrote a column earlier this year after Christmas when Klay Thompson sort of went off about the Grizzlies, and I think the truth is, like, Grizzlies fans should listen to Klay Thompson because Klay Thompson said the reason why we have this sort of disdain for them is because we see them in the rearview mirror. We know this is the team that's coming after us. This is the team that's trying to knock us off the top of the mountain. And it's almost like the disrespect between the two teams is a level of actual respect because the Warriors are acknowledging those are the guys chasing us. Those are the guys that are up next. And we've got to keep them down. And so when they have the chance, they'll knock the Grizzlies down a rung, especially like when they won on Christmas. But that's just the way that this rivalry goes. And I think I can imagine that it's going to continue over the next few years as well, so long as the Warriors are actually good. It's also interesting that the Grizzlies have the Warriors first round pick in 2024, because you wonder what that team will look like when Steph Curry is a few years older. Like, are they going to move on? Is Draymond still going to be on that team? Are they going to be able to stay healthy? Like, it would be interesting at least to see the Grizzlies holding a valuable Warriors pick in 2024 if something were to happen where this team was different. And it just kind of adds another layer to all this. It's a fascinating rivalry. It's one of the best, I think, in the NBA right now.